This is the Wandering Mind.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mind. Today I'm here with Hannah. Hey Hannah, how's it going?
It's going pretty well.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. It's gonna be pretty interesting. Um, so to get us started, if you just wanna introduce yourself quickly, tell us anything you want about your life, your journey. Yeah, anything you want to share.
Yeah. So I was born in Slough, which was it was not one of the best places. There's two main gangs.
Right.
So that's Slough. And like most people know Slough from like, have you seen the Office?
The Office.
Yeah.
Not the British version
But,
though.
yeah. But yeah, the UK version, that's where it's based. That's where I'm from. So I have two sisters and my parents.
Hmm.
And Slough was pretty good. And I spent that it kind of toughened you up. Yeah.
Right.
So I I really liked it. I did two schools. I had normal school and I did performing arts school since I was 5.
Hmm.
So that was pretty cool. It was quite tough because at the start I didn't really get used to it. My mom was like, "You're really shy." So I was born quite shy. And my mum said to me that there's this performing arts school, and I think it'd be a really good idea for you to learn how to communicate, learn how to meet new people, um, and just get out of your comfort zone. So I did, and I was 5, which was a very young age, and then I did performing. Quite a lot of the stuff that I did was from like American, like scripts and American shows, mainly theater, and then we did some film stuff as well. And then I would do exams. So I would do normal exams as well as theater exams.
Right.
So yeah, they were nuts. I actually really enjoyed it. I loved it. I yeah. So I did it from a young age, and I think that's part of it. Like when you start from a young age to theater, I think it's always a person. But like, I feel like when you love theater, it just becomes who you are. And even when you're not watching it or not performing it, it's like I just yeah, absolutely love it. But the exams were intense. You would do a show, and then they would get you to be in a room with all your peers. You would do a monologue or a song,
Hmm.
and then they would interview you, and they'd be like, "Oh, you did this character. How did you find this character in relation to the others?" And then you would, they would get you to do like scenarios from 1 to 7. So if someone said to you, "Mike, do a surprise party on the level 7," and
Hmm.
and then we like do it now, and you would have to do it on your feet.
Right.
Yeah. So it was quite cool actually because it made you spontaneous. It made you
So it's a
think and
lot of
improvise.
improv.
Yeah, a lot of
It's
improv. Which it took me a long time to be good at improv. I feel like everything, art, theater, like creativity, it takes constantly evolving it and constantly changing it, and I think you're constantly challenging yourself. And I wasn't always like yeah, I think even now, how I'm performing, like what we were talking about before, how I'm
right.
performing now, very different to what I was like,
Right.
because you're constantly evolving it. But no, I would do quite a few exams, which I would do Monday to Friday, normal school, maths, English, and then the weekends would be my performing school. So it'd be all the way up until I was 16.
So that sounds very overwhelming. Like that's a lot of stuff to like throw at a child that's growing up.
Yeah, but I feel like it's really good because like it's very I guess controlled and structured, and you have to have like this is
Right.
what you're doing each day. And I think even now what I'm learning is actually unlearning that, because when you go into the real world you realize actually like it's good to have a routine, it's good to have structure.
Yeah.
Everything is so like unplanned, everything just happens. Life has
Right.
a way of doing things. And so I think that's something I really learned about myself, that actually going in the moment and being in the moment is as vital as having everything in the next step planned. I feel like living in the moment. Do you feel like that? Because I feel like traveling and the whole aspect of meeting new people, new experiences, it's like it's being in the moment rather than thinking of like the next thing ahead.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I also had to learn that though. Like I've been traveling for the majority of my life.
Mm.
Like it was always part of my life to be abroad, to go to some places for a year, maybe for 2 or 3 years, and then move on and go somewhere else.
Mm.
And yeah, by now I probably spent about as much time in Germany than out of Germany. Is that a saturation? No, about that time. So, um, but there were times where I was traveling and I was taking in these new experiences, but I wasn't fully taking them in as I am now. So it is something that you really, I think, need to learn
Mm.
and be like, oh, you're just to name an example. I don't know if this happened like this, but for example, you're at a beautiful beach and there's a sunset going on, and then you realize after 2 hours, oh, I was just stressing about work or whatever and didn't even take in the
Mm.
sunset, and now the sun's gone, and it's like, oh, I missed the beautiful sunset. So no, I definitely feel that
Yeah.
point, and that's how, regardless of if there's a sunset going on, to be honest, or if you're just coming home from work and having dinner with your family, it's just something we always should do because it just enhances the quality of our life
Oh yeah,
so
for sure.
immensely.
I do. I completely agree with that. I feel like when you look back, go, oh, what was I really like? What was I worrying about? What was I thinking about back then? And then even now, like all the things that go through our minds, we know that 10 years down the line, we won't remember what we were thinking about, but we remember these big points. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like and I think you're right. I feel like it's your mentality, and the longer you stay traveling as well, you kind of go through the experiences in a new way. For instance, the more times I've gone to Sutherland Falls, always different, but now I'm always like, this is I don't know, I feel like I you live it more when you're fully aware.
yeah,
So and it's the same with performing. I feel like every performance is different. I can you do a show like 2, 3 times a day for about 2 weeks. Like
right,
one of the shortest shows, every show is different. Like, every show is different. There's always either something goes wrong or, like, the timing's different or, well, even if everything goes completely right, every show is different because you're feeling different and it's live, and
yeah,
that's what I love about theater. I feel like theater is very different to film, and I've done a bit of both,
right,
but I absolutely love theater because you can perform it 500 times and every show be different, and, whereas with film you do the take about 6, 7 times, or it's very choreographed, um, which is good. Theater is also choreographed, as well as combat, as well as dance, as well as quite a lot of performing is choreographed and set pieces. Um, there's a lot more editing with film. You can edit into the way that you want it to be. Whereas with
right,
theater, if you can't edit. Is like that relationship you have with that audience is what's the feeling that you're having that night.
yes,
Whereas with film, you can adapt it and you can make it, amend it into something that people want. Do you find that when you watch a show or watch a movie, there's a set target market, there's a set like
mm,
type of person. They're like, right, we want to this audience to watch it, and they've edited it, and the lighting, the set, characters, the actors, everything is targeting specific people. Same with well, actually, that is same with theatre as well. But I don't know, art is very beautiful because it can be spontaneous.
yeah. I actually find all aspects of what you just mentioned super interesting.
Mm.
So I actually want to dive a little bit more into the world of acting and
Mm.
performing. So something you said was super interesting because in my naive mind
Mm,
that doesn't know anything about the art of acting. I'm just like watching the actors, I'm just watching the play, but I don't know what's going on. My feeling is always like, obviously, you are changing your emotions to what you want to feel on stage.
mm,
But then you said, obviously, the show is different, and it makes no sense because you feel different.
mm.
How? So basically, what I want to ask, like, how difficult is it to really like be that person you play and completely disregard that, oh, maybe Hannah is having a shit day, but now I'm not Hannah, I'm Gertrude who's in that
Yeah,
play,
I get you. I don't think you ever really disregard who you are in relation to your character. I feel like all the characters I've made, how I've connected myself to them is you find yourself through them, or you find
Mm,
something that's in relation to them. And I think being an empath is a really big part of being an actor. I think
sure.
understanding somebody else's emotions, or because that's what it is. You're playing the role of this person. You're understanding the reasons why they did something. They understand the emotions that they were feeling at that time. And I think being an empath is a really big part of that. And I think if I weren't me, I would play these characters in a very different way. Because
Sure.
if I had this, one of the characters that I had was, well, I've had two extremes. So I've had this really intense kind of murderer person,
Mm,
and those roles are really hard to connect to because they're so far from what you would normally do on a day-to-day life,
right.
but you're trying to understand the reasons why this person did these things, or the reasons why, like, yeah, just the background and everything. And I think,
Mm.
but then you also have these really kind people, um which you have more connections to. So I think you don't really disconnect yourself from a character. I think you find relations that you have with them, and then through that, you create kind of a relationship and perform in that way.
So if I can just ask a very yeah, blunt question,
Mm.
like, how does one find a connection between himself and the murderer person?
Ah, that was, yeah. It was very hard, but like it was hard, that one. But I think it was like an 18th century Russian play,
Right.
and so it was kind of, it was very different and very out of my comfort zone. I'd never done it before,
Yeah.
and I couldn't really find a relation, but I did find a relation because, so it was, this character really liked this younger protagonist and
Mm,
was quite protective and very, very emotionally attached to this character. And through that, I found a connection because
mm,
I have sisters, I have friends that I love
right.
dearly, and I have people around me that I really want to be okay and protect. And I think through that, I was like, okay, this is how this person felt for this other protagonist, and go like, maybe they did these things out of, yeah, it's finding a way. You don't have to find a way, but I feel like I find personally to be authentic in my character is to find a connection. And through that character, it was his relation to the younger protagonist rather than the murderous
Right.
intent.
Right.
The murderous intent. So yeah. And the, like, there's so many different teachings as well. There's
Mm,
so many different variables. There's so many different ways. There's so many practitioners. Quite a lot of drama schools and universities and drama lessons in general try and teach you, like, this practitioner thought this way, and this is how you should read a script, or this is how you should um work on your character. And there's so many. There's so many. But I think it's really finding what works for you. And you could talk to another actor and they would have specific ways that they learn and learn a character, learn a script. I find learning lines really easy with ball and playing sports. So
mm.
like, if I'm doing something else while learning my lines, I find it easier,
Right.
and because you're multitasking, it becomes muscle memory.
Mm.
But then you also take the time to sit back and actually read in the lines. And I think great thing about theatre and life is there's more knowledge and more language in what's not spoken than what is spoken.
Mm.
I think that's a really good thing. You could have a 4-page monologue, but actually the one thing that that character didn't say is as important as those 4 pages that they did say. So, yeah.
That's a Yeah, I guess that's a great insight, and that's kind of the art in portraying the things
Mm.
that aren't said,
Hmm.
right? And portraying them to the audience.
Yeah. But I think also when we take into account performing and art and creativity, it's actually just human beings. It actually is. It's just people at the end. Like at the end of the
Yeah,
day, it's written by people, it's for people, and it's about people. And I think that's the great thing about theatre, and that's why I'm so grateful that I did start when I was so young,
yeah,
because actually it gave me more of an understanding of individuals. And I think that's it. There's such a thin line between performing and psychology is really entwined with it. And I
yeah,
think it makes me see the world in a very different way. I'm watching people how they move. I'm watching people how they react to things. And like I said before, it's really interesting about what people don't say as well as what they do say. So I think that's why I love theatre. Because you're watching people and being like, this person wrote, for instance, like Taking Spectacles, it was written after World War II, it was about World War II, and it was a murder mystery. And it and it's about this person who's died, and he goes and the detective interrogates the person, and they tell their story. And you think this person wrote about these people, and then at a time where everything was going crazy, at a time where it was really hard. And I think you learn about people's mindsets and through the characters, through the writing, every writer's different. Yeah, there's so many aspects to it. You find in like the books that you read, and
yeah.
the everyone is different, and the scripts you read is very different. But yeah, that's why.
So, because obviously, with you learning this for a long time and being like really into the like you mentioned before, the empathetic part of it as well, and basically that's something you need for performing,
Hmm.
and then it transpires into your life. Do you find that because of that lens that you look at people, that it's a lot easier to accept what people do around you? You know, let's say if people act in a way that a lot of people might get angry at them or might be like frustrated or irritated, and you just kind of sit back as a spectator and be like, oh, why did this person act? Oh, this is such an interesting character. Is that something that happens in your life where you go and you see someone and yeah, you're just like kind of fascinated rather than irritated by by how people act?
Yes and no. Depends on the person, and it depends if they're pissing me off.
Fair,
Like,
fair.
if I can sit back and watch, but if I'm like, nah, this is going way too far. Like you can to a degree. Like everyone's still their own person, and I think if you get frustrated, you get frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, no, and yeah, I think my strength and weaknesses is my empathy. And I
Hmm.
think something that I still am learning through my craft and through this life in general is the line between too much empathy. Because I'm like,
Right.
you can be empathetic and like understand where someone's coming from. And then there's just like taking a step back and being like, you can empathize, you can understand them, but it doesn't mean that what they did was right. And I
Yeah.
think, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
it, it's morals and boundaries as well as so yeah. So it's good to take a step back and to watch. Also, if I see something that I don't agree with. Also, like coming like being from Slough, like you have to kind of stand up for yourself
Mhm.
because if you didn't, you would you would be on the ground. So it's like
So
yeah.
maybe because we just talked because there's so many interesting things that you
Mm,
said. So we're just stuck with the performing arts. But actually, that is something I wanted to ask about as well, because you mentioned there were two gangs going on. I mean, that's obviously something you probably know if you've grown up there, but is it something you actually witnessed as well? Like, did your life kind of, do you have experiences with these gangs going on?
oh yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
definitely. They were in my like year, like so we had like
right.
quite high up people in my year, like what most people were in either gang. You didn't really have a choice. You were
All
either in
right.
either gang. I was quite lucky. I tried to stay out of it as much as possible.
Mm,
But no, there would be um like one day I was in year 10 and I was home late and I ended up finding my mom like walking around trying to find me and I was like and she never did that. I was like, why are you trying to find me?
mm.
And my house was stoned. And I was like, "Damn." And then my mom was like, "Yeah, I think they were trying to find you and, like, they thought you were home and they just like, they stoned." And so it was mainly me and my sisters and my mom. My dad's
Mm,
been around, but he traveled a lot with work,
right.
and so he was never really in the picture until way later. So it was just, like, a bunch of
Yeah.
we looked after each other, and then we had my nans and my aunties, and yeah, so she was really strong. She opened the door apparently and she was like had a go at them and like told him who's boss and then she like got her keys and she went to look for me and I was like, I'm okay and she was like, I didn't know whether I was gonna find you or
Mhm.
yeah, so and there was you saw every day you would see things and like there's quite a few people I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I left actually because people I knew were either like going into jail or like, some of them, like, yeah, like, get hurt, and, like and I think it really made me kind of big part of who I am because it makes me more grateful for people and kinder to people. I think I've always tried to be kind. But, yeah, it was just something that didn't I just always thought was normal.
Right. No,
So
no, that's actually something I wanted to ask
hmm,
about as well, because it does sound like you managed as good as someone could manage to like not be in the middle of it,
hmm,
but still it happened in your life. And like you said, yeah, that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask. It seems normal. So, how and obviously, as you said, there is good things, and it's always good to just concentrate on the positive things that came out of it.
mm,
Obviously, um, but how was that? Basically, living in, I don't know if you can call it a parallel society, but it basically was a society where other things were normal.
mm,
Like it wasn't like it was a different law, right? It was the law of the
mm,
gangs. Like other things were accepted. It wasn't
mm.
like what is accepted here in Queenstown. You know, so you basically live in a society of sorts where the rules were what is normal is completely shifted and you
Mm,
kind of have to adapt to that, and like you said, in order to survive and
yeah,
not be pushed over. And so yeah, how was that whole experience?
of, like, coming out of it into, like, different places and stuff. It took
Eh,
me, like I moved out. It was, like, less than a month from when I turned 18 that I moved to Cornwall.
mm,
Yes, it was, like, 3 weeks or so, and, like, it took me a long time to get used to it because it's so different, like, I was used to, there'd be, like, a helicopter that would go around and, like a police helicopter or, like, a
mm,
w you get to, like you walk past them and you get to know the police officers and, like, they talk because you see them so often, and,
right.
and you're like yeah, and I think it took me a long time to be like, "Actually, this is different to other places," which is really I kinda struggled because I don't think I saw any, like, police or anything like that, and I think I got I had a partner for 3 years, and we met very quickly after I moved to Cornwall, and, um, and and they were a non-binary individual, and I didn't know I was gay, and so coming out to my parents was, like, but then so it kinda, like, going from that environment to Cornwall and learning very early on. Like, so it's like from one new thing to another, and I was like, "Oh my days." But I loved that because I learned so much about myself
Mm,
very quickly, and I think even now I'm learning about myself. And so, yeah, we were together for 3 years, and yeah, I met them very quickly. And then we ended up they were in a film course, I was in theater course, and then we did some, like, work together, and then I think it was I don't know at what point, but um, we ended up starting like a I don't know, like a protest group,
mm,
and I think that was part of me being like, "We gotta do something, like, we gotta, like." There wasn't really much LGBT rights in Cornwall, so we were kind of like, "Right, let's do something it was scary actually, it was me, Corey, and our friend Rue, who was in my class,
mm.
and yeah, we were like, "Right, well, we gotta do something. We gotta."
So it's literally the three
Yeah.
of you who started the well,
We
because
do
that sounds
like, we gain more people,
really
but,
like
like, yeah. Wait,
taken on a lot. Like,
yeah, and, like, but through that, we met other groups, and through that, we met more people,
right.
and I think also I met, like, people who were also in the creative aspects, so
Mm,
there was people from classes that were above me. So we all kinda, like, gathered people, and
mm,
what we did was we created safe spaces. So I would get in contact with venues who were LGBT friendly or like promoting LGBT rights. And I said, can we do like a music event or can we do
mm,
like performance here? And can we create a safe space where people can just feel at home, feel safe, talk about things. And yeah, and then Corey and Rue would be like the face of it because they're like Corey was non-binary, and then was he they, and I was I'm pan, so not quite a lot of people like wanted to know about like pansexual and like LGBT in general, but I did quite a lot of the admin. So I contacted the people, I
mm.
contacted the venues, and then just got people together, and like I had a safe space. So yeah, and they changed my life. So I think I constantly went from one new environment to another in a great way. But I kind of you can take the girl out of cell, but you can't take the cell out of the girl.
Yeah,
There's always that bit of fight in her. But yeah. But do you feel like that? Like you can travel around and you'd be like, there's still a part of you that's like the same? Or are they always evolving? I think you are always evolving as well.
that is a great
Mm.
question
Mm.
actually. Because I would definitely agree with you. I feel like the human ego maybe sometimes wants to cling on something stable,
Mm.
and it kind of feels safe to be like, yes, this is who I am,
Mm.
and this is not going to change.
Mm.
Because for some people, it might be scary. Well, if I'm someone else tomorrow morning, like, who am I?
Mm.
But in my opinion, as you've said, it's part of life to change.
Mm.
And I mean, we could go into a spiritual discussion here, which I'm also open to do and be curious to find out how you feel about these things. But for me, that's kind of the question: is like, who am I?
Mm.
Like, what is the self,
Mm.
basically? So, um, what? Yeah. So that's basically the big question, and I feel like to be able to answer that in a way that is maybe more in line with our earthly bodies
Mm.
would be in a sort of way in the way we act.
Mm.
So I don't think that anything other than the way we act truly defines us. So, and with that being said, that can always change because we find out new things. We basically have more experiences. We learn different cultures. We immerse ourselves in different things,
Mm,
and by that, we always change. I think I feel like it's for me personally hard to answer the question is because I wouldn't say that where I grew up was specific, like it wasn't a very um I don't know, it wasn't a very prominent place. It wasn't like
mm,
because it sounds like there was a lot going on in your
mm,
place. So obviously it shapes a person. Obviously everywhere you grow up shapes a person. But I feel like um if you go into a rural area in southern Germany where I'm from, so a
mm,
little town, we had 2,500 people living in the town. But there's probably thousands of these towns in southern Germany. So I feel like in any of those, the people would be the way I am. And I don't
mm.
know if there's a thousand of the towns that you grew up in England. Maybe there's not. Maybe there's only
Wow.
one or two. So that's why I feel like um, there's nothing too specific about the way I grew up that I would definitely pinpoint to saying that always stayed with me. Um,
Isn't that beautiful though? No, isn't that like it's like
it
isn't that nice? Because that means that all the places and all the experiences that you go, it's like it's you. It's just you. And it's the same to be fair, it's the same with me. Like, yeah, I'm from South, but the experiences that you choose to have and the people you meet and the places you go actually will shape you rather than where you're from. You know what I mean? Like that's
exactly.
and I think that's like I think you put it in a really good way. It's like the town that you're from, the town that I'm from, there's probably like hundreds of different of like hundreds of like the same similar ones. But actually, you're different than all the others. Like, you know what I mean? Like as
Yeah,
an individual, you're different than anybody from all the other ones.
definitely. Well, that just got me thinking. I'm still I'm still in the process, but um, yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about life is that we don't really need to. I mean, obviously, it's good and great to have a plan in life. You
Mm,
know, a lot of my fulfillment comes from knowing that I want to do this podcast,
mm,
knowing that I love to work in hostels, I love to work in tourism, and in that kind of sense, I have a very fulfilled life
mm,
in knowing that I can pursue these things. But also, if I would wake up tomorrow morning and I don't know, my new passion is skydiving, and I
mm,
want to be a skydiving instructor. I would be flexible enough to say, okay, there must be a reason why I'm
mm.
feeling this way, and I'm just gonna indulge into that reasoning.
Yeah.
Uh, so in that sort of sense, yeah, we should always be very flexible in learning and be open to the change that maybe is also signaled to us through the universe.
No, I completely agree, and I think that's what like I was very badly trying to say earlier. It's like I was been structured from a very young age a set thing, so I always knew
Mm,
what was coming next. And I
right.
think now I'm at a time in my life where actually I don't need to know what's coming next, or I don't like, I can choose from one day to the other and be like, actually, I
Yeah.
do want to be into skydiving today and just do something else. And like, and you can, I think that's the great thing about like being an adult. Everyone keeps saying to me, "Oh, isn't it great being a kid?" And it is. It's great being a kid. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great being a kid. But as you get older, you can be like, actually, I want to do this today, and you can just change everything and be like,
Yeah.
and like I obviously we have things to think about like stability and like getting by and everything. But I think it's great that actually not knowing is as exciting as knowing. You know what I mean?
And I feel though like in I think like it's really hard for and again, I don't want to generalize, and I also hate if I talk about other people,
Mm.
but I just personally, it's my opinion that for a lot of people, it might be hard to experience adult life in that kind of, maybe you can call it like childlike
Mm.
curiosity, because for like I said before, for a lot of people, I think they just want the stability so much that they aren't open for these things. Like you say, and I totally agree with you, it's the amazing thing is that you can do whatever you want. But for some people, maybe that's not an amazing thing, but it's a scary thing.
Oh,
For
yeah.
them, it's more amazing to know, oh, I have this 9 to 5 job. I'm going there
Oh,
every
yeah.
day. And so,
100%, 100%, and I can say my family have feel the same way. My family have been like, "Actually, it's nice knowing that you have a roof on you like, roof over your head, you've got these are the days that you're working, and actually this is the time you have free, and you're okay, and you're stable, and you don't have to worry." And I think that is completely true, and sometimes I feel like that. I'm like, "You know what? Actually, it's having stability is really tempting, and it's nice knowing that you're gonna be okay. And, like, you are gonna be okay no matter what. And, like, I do agree with you. It can be really scary, but I feel like I choose to go with the fear. Like,
no, no,
you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah,
so true. And my sister's really worried because she's going back to work because her daughter is turning 1 this month.
right.
So, yeah, my niece is turning 1, and she's going back to work, and she was like, "Well, there's gonna be a new stability, a new routine, but it's scary." And I think and life is constantly changing and constantly moving, even when we're not like, you know what I mean? It's been a year, and she's like, "Right, I'm going back to work," and it's scary, but it's stability, but it's scary. And I think, yeah, and also friends of mine getting married, friends of mine like moving houses. I moved out of my house and put like and went back home and my stuff is in storage. So now I'm like, oh, so it's yeah, it's the balance of fear and enjoying everything. And if you it's just enjoying, doing what you enjoy, doing what's healthy for you, doing what makes you happy at the end of the day. You know?
Yeah,
Life's too short to be in something that you don't want to do. You gotta experience things that you want to experience. What I want to experience is completely different to what somebody else wants to experience. Doesn't mean that's any less or any more. I think that's what just makes them happy and makes me happy.
yeah. And the part you said about fear as well, I feel like obviously sometimes some fears obviously we shouldn't try to explore. For example, if I say I'm afraid of someone stabbing me. I mean that's a legitimate fear. I shouldn't go out there and try to get stabbed.
Yeah.
But I also feel like a lot of times we have things in our minds, right?
Mm.
So we're kind of like, oh, for some reason, I feel like it might be interesting to go to New Zealand, and then it's like, oh, but it could be quite scary,
Mm.
and oh, you're going there by yourself. So there's a lot of fear, basically trying to, maybe on a superficial level, trying to protect us. But then I feel like every time we have that fear, we have to ask ourselves, but why? Why am I drawn to it?
Mm.
Like, and then so just in general, I feel like you said, if you embrace the fear or
Mm.
basically go with the fear, um, we can learn again a lot about ourselves, because then that's where we develop. That's where we learn, is
Yeah.
if we do things that we're scared, again, in a reasonable sense,
Yeah.
things that we're scared of, not, oh, I got stabbed today. I learned so much. But
But actually, what you're saying is, when you what you were saying kind of reminded me of the fight or flight, and that's part of our nature. That's part of our like human nature.
Mm.
if we see a threat or see something that's not used to what we already know, we see it as fear. And I think, like,
Yeah.
if something is different or if something is creating a reaction in our minds and our bodies, we see it as fight or flight. And I think that, and that's like, and I think when it comes to traveling and aspects of life, there's a fine line between courage and fear. And I
Mm.
think sometimes, like, you go on one side and sometimes you go on the other, but it's like understanding the line. And I think it goes all the way back to our primal instincts of fight or flight. And I think it's hard and it's like negotiating, like, is this is this fear because to keep you safe? And I think that's why we have fears in general, because we try to, like, keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
And it goes back, yeah, like I said, primal instincts that actually we like routine. Naturally, we like routine because it keeps us safe and we know it's comfortable. But it can also, like, we can also get stuck in it. And I think it's understanding the line between fear and being courageous. And then you get the fear, like, every time before a show, I have a fear. The fear. It's
Yeah.
the but it's mixed with excitement and, like, happiness, and then I always find that during the show and then after I'm like, "Oh, it's gone like a click." Like, you go into a state. It's like a meditative state where you're performing and nothing else exists and you're just doing
Right.
it. And but before you have all that fear. And I think that's the great thing about performing, and it's the same with biking actually, and like motorbiking and mountain biking and
Mm.
or like or anything that has adrenaline. You get into this state of fear, and then it's like pause that nothing else exists, and you come out of it. You're like, oh my god, the adrenaline! Like, yeah, I really like that. You
That
can do with combat as well. Sorry.
no, but that's actually quite interesting. Um, because and I just want to make that clear again because you have performed for some years, right?
Mm.
And you still to this day have this fear. Yeah,
But the
no, but it's a beautiful thing because it kind of tells us also that it's more than a job, kind of,
mm,
because like for me, for example, as a trainer, I worked with people. I had to speak in front of people as
mm,
well, and in the beginning, obviously, for me, it was always kind of easier than for other people, I
mm,
suppose. But obviously, the very first time I did it, I never done it before. I was
mm,
kind of in my head. I was a little, yeah, I had a little fear, and I was
mm,
like, "Oh, am I going to do this justice and all that?" But it went away. Like
mm,
doing it for half a year, yeah, maybe half a year, maybe 9 months. It went away and became natural. But
mm,
then I kind of feel like it's telling us something that these adrenaline experiences, these one could argue more meaningful
mm,
experiences, that you still before a show get that kind of fear and excitement, and then you have to go through that fear, and then it helps you experience this crazy meditative state.
mm.
So,
It's addictive. And I think if you lose the fear in performing, then your mind's somewhere else. I feel like. I don't know. Or like, I don't know. Thing with public speaking, if you're saying, like, I don't know, I don't know. I've never not had the fear, but I kind of love having the fear though, because it's like it could be a different show, be the same show. It's me putting the energy and getting myself into that mindset and getting myself ready, because it's not the speaking in front of people that gives me the fear.
yeah,
It's and there's a buzz around. There's the energy, and I think that's just a buzz of nervousness. And you can do it to like 50 people or 200 people. There's still the same kind of buzz, unless there's like 10 people in the audience. You're like, okay, whatever.
yeah,
But like, I don't know. I think I love it. I love it, and I love having the fear, and when I feel like I don't have the fear, I don't think I'm putting it, like, myself in it.
S- So, just to maybe understand a little bit
Mm,
more, because I find it super interesting.
mm,
To just pick your brain here
mm.
a bit. Um, so because you also talked about the differences in theater play
Mm,
and filming,
mm.
do you usually experience that fear in front of the camera? Just because you said you can edit it afterwards. So
Yeah,
is it a different fear? Is there a fear of filming?
that's a really good question, and actually, no,
Right.
because with film, you're with a crew, and the crew usually sticks with you for most of the time. Sometimes
Mm,
there'll be different, like, different hands and, like, different, like, people that are helping out and stuff, but it's usually the same group of people with you all the time, and I
right.
feel like and also because it's so choreographed, so you're like, "Okay, so this is the marker that you start on, this is the marker that you're finishing on, these are the moves you're doing, or
Mhm.
this is the scene that you're doing." You have your script, you have your, um, the short list. So, like,
Right.
these are the images that we're doing. These like, this camera is on you from this angle, this camera is on you from this angle, and you know what's happening, and you know every detail before it happens. Whereas I think with theatre there's an element of spontaneity to it, so you don't know what can happen at the scene. Whereas if the lighting in a film is like 2 centimeters off, they're like, right, okay, cut, and then move the light,
Mhm.
move it. So it's like you create a relationship with the crew that you're with when it comes to film that actually the more relaxed you are and more less of the fear you have, the better. Whereas with theatre, the more fear you have, the more adrenaline you have, the more energy you have, which means the more energy you can give to an
Right.
audience. And I think, yeah, I feel like even though they're so closely linked, they're so different because the craft in film is more about elements fitting together to creating one overarching piece. And it's
Mm.
the same with theatre, but theatre is what was it like on that evening? What was it like on that show? It could be the same show with all the elements working together, but you can see someone on like Thursday matinee and then talk to someone that's on Saturday night and they would be like completely different.
Yeah.
Whereas if you saw a film 300 times, you would see the different elements that created everything together, but it'd be the same. So, no, yeah, that's a really interesting question because I don't get the fear because everyone knows each other really well, and it's just this crew that you're stuck with.
Good. No, that is quite interesting. That's really interesting. Um, and just again because I never had the experience of standing on a stage.
Mm,
It's something that, and I'm still very young, so who knows?
mm,
That maybe I get to do at some point.
yeah,
Because it sounds to me, it sounds really nice. It
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
really enticing. Um,
It's not easy, but
of
it's
course
worth
not.
it, and
Of course not.
I think it's such a great thing, and I think like I kind of recommend it to enough. There's so many elements to it, and it's not just what like there's so many different shows, but it's not even just the performing aspect. There's the costume, there's the set, there's like the research. If you creating, because in uni we created our show as well as toured it, so it's like
Mm,
all the research and everything and understanding behind it. And I feel like you can't do a performance or a show and not get something out of it. You know, what I mean, you can absolutely hate it, but actually, there's still something. There's something in it for everyone. And I
yeah.
think also that I feel like you're such a natural, like charismatic person. I think you'll love it as well. Yeah. Anyway.
I appreciate that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to know how that moment actually feels, because you talked about the connection with the audience, and
Mm.
obviously, I can just imagine like if they are super silent or if they even start to boo, that is something you would recognize. Is it actually because there's also a lot of things going on stage,
Mm,
right? And you can't like you focus, you're in the zone.
mm.
Um, you have your lines to memorize, and I just there's a lot of stuff I reckon going on.
Hmm.
So how present actually is the audiences or the audience in general in your mind? Like, do you pick up a lot of how their energy is? Like, is that really a vital role? Like, how big does that impact you when you do a play?
Well, I feel like by the time you're doing the show, you need to be present. Like the line should be like second nature to you, and like
Mm,
everything should be second nature to you. And I think you being present, and quite a lot of what I learned at uni actually is performing. You really need to be present as if you're saying it for the first time, and it's like every time should always be you're reacting, you're feeling it, you're performing it as if it were the first time, and it's
right.
not a script. You're saying it from you,
Mm,
and so, in relation to how present I connect with the audience, um, I think I think you have to be quite present with the audience because you're trying to communicate with them, even if you're not talking. Like even if it's not a soliloquy and not talking directly at them, you're
yeah.
still kind of trying to talk to them. You're trying
Mm,
to get them to understand not just the plot, but just the what's going on behind the scenes, and you want them to go on the journey with you,
right.
so you always have them in your mind going, actually, is this the best way, or is this communicating to the audience what's happening within the scene? Because without them you don't have a performance. Without the onlookers, without the yeah, it would just there is no show. And I think that's it. You can't have a theater show without the audience.
Mm,
You have they are constantly in your mind. Even when even when you can't see them, when the light's not on them, they're there and they're present and you know they're there. So I think they're always with you. You always have them and with even with film, even when they're not actually in the room, you're having the viewer's thoughts and what they're gonna witness in your mind. Because that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day. We're trying to demonstrate and communicate to an audience, and we're trying to not in a bad way, but manipulate their emotions
no, right. Yeah.
because we want them to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
We want them to feel sad. We want them to be empathizing this particular character in this scene. We want them to see this person walk at the back of the stage and not say anything, but like we want them to notice the small things. And we're drawing their eye line and we're drawing their attention to particular things. So always thinking what they're gonna see.
Yeah.
So
It's no,
yeah.
it's so fascinating to actually hear it explained in
Hmm.
that much detail. Because I just personally never really thought in that much
Mm.
detail about it. Obviously, I watch it and I feel certain emotions,
Mm.
and sometimes I can appreciate, for me specifically, like a good dialogue, good lines. Like we talked about,
Mm.
like for me, I always paid a lot of attention to the written part, to the text. So
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. Other people might be drawn to more like costumes or like
Mm.
how the sets are made up and they can appreciate those things more. But yeah, obviously it basically gets me to feel a certain way, but it's always very hard to really figure out, okay, what were all the things that led
Yeah.
me to really feel that feeling.
Mm.
So no, it was really interesting to hear like everything that's going on behind there.
Mm. It's the same with combat as well.
Mm,
It's the same, like, for instance, you see in quite a lot of quite a lot of the Marvel films, or even Lord of the Rings, they will teach the actors set 5 moves. So, okay, so you're going to grab him here, you're gonna do this you're gonna, head move, you're gonna grab his, shoulder, and you're gonna push him over to that corner. And they will angle the, the cameras at a particular way so it looks most realistic. And so
Right.
so they are manipulating the viewer's eye line, and they'll teach them 5 steps, all right, right, cut. And then they'll be like, "Right," so then it's choreography, so they'll teach you, um, set moves, like 5 set moves, and then, right, cut, done those 5 set moves, on to the next 5 set moves. Right, 3, 2, 1, go, and then so it's like building like a pie. You're building all
Yeah.
all the ingredients together, and it's like quite a lot of the ones that you see. They don't just teach you the whole fight scene. They'll teach you sections, and they film it, and they teach you the next section, and they film it, and they're constantly thinking, right? So we're gonna have this camera here because they want the audience to follow specific eye lines. So the they just taught you this whole set piece of choreography without thinking of the audience would get a completely different interpretation of what was happening. So,
Yeah. I feel like from what you explained, and I don't know if that's true, but from doing theater, I
mm,
feel like you have a lot of experience in all of the like things that, like you said, go on with the play
mm,
because you planned your play, like um, you made it up, and because for me, if I think, especially in film, about actors, it's I mean, obviously, there's a lot to it, but
mm,
it's basically you are the character, you are the lines, and you're portraying the character. And the things you just mentioned is more, I believe, like for the, I don't know exactly if it's the director or the producer, but it's like the people who are seeing the big picture. And
mm.
I don't know if maybe the lead role obviously has a bigger influence, but if they really are aware of the big picture in as much of a sense as a producer or director might be. So I feel like in theater, as the actor, you have more control over that part, or is that wrong? Like over the overall
I get what you mean.
production part.
I completely understand. Yeah, and if you're when you get cast, yeah, you don't think about all those other things. You're not in control of those other things. You have
Yeah.
people that do those things, and you are there to learn your character, do the set pieces, and be present in your character. And you're right.
Yeah.
Everything else, that's somebody else's job. You're just thinking like, this is what I'm doing. These are what this is what I'm trying to portray. And as the actor, you are focusing on how can I most authentic portray this character?
Hmm.
How can I authentically and naturally show that an audience this person's life? And
Right.
relating quite a lot. Um, you do quite a lot of research of understanding, like, especially if it's some of it has truth or some of it has like historical context. You go and you educate yourself so you can authentically portray that character. And then all the others, like the set, the lighting, the costume, yeah, that's done by everybody else. Whereas you're there and you're like, this person had this habit. Like, I played, uh-oh, um, so I played the trial, and like it's quite intense and quite abstract play. And one of the characters I had was this old lady,
Hmm.
and I felt awful doing it. I was about 16 at the time, but I was walking home and there was an old lady in front of me on the street.
Hmm.
And she was like bent over and she had like a cane.
Right.
And I was like, I watched her and then like kind of somewhat mimicked her without her knowing. And that became kind of part of the characteristic or
Hmm.
that my character had. So I think it's, yeah, as a role, as an actor, you have to think of how you can use your mind, your voice, your body to most authentically portray that other person. And that's a really big thing. Fitness, body, vocal coaching, it's and understanding breathing as well. Like the human anatomy really comes into actually that character that you're playing.
Um, I just have another question. Again, I'm just very curious.
Mm.
And I just was thinking myself into obviously if it's a historic person, let's
Mm,
say I don't know, not you, but someone would do Kurt Cobain, for example.
mm,
There's we know who Kurt Cobain is. There's a lot of videos, there's a lot of material that one
mm,
could watch. But let's say you were to play a firewoman. Um, would you think, because just of the example you just told about the old lady,
mm.
you think as an actor it would be more beneficial to actually go and watch real firewomen? Or
Yeah.
maybe you watch 10 movies where, I don't know, Kate Winslet played a
Mm.
firewoman and you watch other actors. What do you think would be more beneficial?
Well, if there's video evidence or evidence of that person that you're actually portraying, then you watch that evidence and you learn their habits and their like characteristics and you study them.
Yeah.
I think it's the only reason you would go outwards and do. It's always good to learn other people's perspective of that person as well, because then you can every actor pinpoints and learns different things about that person. For instance,
Mm,
my portrayal of a character is completely different to Kate Winslet's portrayal of that person. But it's interesting to be like, oh, that's what she like connected with and did that authentically.
mm,
But so it's a bit of both. But if you've got material of that person that you're portraying, then 100% like study that material like crazy because you want to be more as authentic and connect with that as much as possible. So 100%, 100%. You don't really get that often though. Yeah,
mm.
like most scripts or like most like yeah, with most scripts you don't have um or like theater scripts. You have shows, for instance, Shakespeare, you have like tons and tons of people that have done the same roles but completely different.
Mm.
And I think that's what I love about Shakespeare is actually like depending on the casting director and or the artistic director and what they want to do, it's completely different. But it's very rare for you to get a character that has video evidence of what they were like. I mean, you see it more in film.
Yeah.
You see it more in film. Like quite a lot of people have portrayed like historical figures and stuff, and it's good because you can tell that they've studied and they've become. For instance, that person that did Elvis,
Right.
um, he completely went into his character and
Mm.
and ended up becoming him at some point. And that's like there's a fine line with going too far and like it's learning like to being yourself or and then like losing yourself too much. Because I happen to there's so there's quite a few practitioners and one of them is they like living the character and like completely empathizing, completely understanding them. And it can be quite dangerous. And I think you don't really have that often, but there have been some I wouldn't say, I was going to say mainly in film, but like, I guess you can mainly see it in film with Heath Ledger. But
Yeah.
like, and a few other people, but they've completely lost themselves in the role, which is amazing, but it's just learning how to get back out of it again. But I haven't experienced that. But I think that's because you have to completely kind of surrender yourself to this character, which they have.
Is that basically to tie in what we started off with? Would you say that's like a perfect or the complete connection, basically, is if you're losing yourself in the character because you become
Yeah.
the character?
That's really interesting actually that you say that. Yeah, they've empathized and understood this person so much that actually like
Right.
they're and they've studied them in so intensely that they wanted the most authentic performance and then they living it as that person,
Mm.
which is very dangerous. And I think, yeah, and I'm thinking like surely there would probably be still a part of them, and they probably were still like that. You still are that same person. I think they were just so in that role they got lost.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, for me, even more so than probably for you, but it's a very foreign thing to think about, um, because I don't know, and I don't know if you have more experience with that, but I can't really imagine a scenario where I am like not at the set
Mm.
to just stay at film and truly believe I am not me, but I
No,
am the
yeah, yeah.
character. So
Yeah,
this it seems so far away.
yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really experienced that myself
Mhm.
because I've been deeply moved by things, and I think and I've really empathized with characters, and I've been really deeply moved, but I haven't lost myself. I think it takes a lot of training, a like day in, day out training to really get to that point. That's why you haven't really don't really see it much because it's very rare. And I think because their purpose, like always in character. And I think it was quite interesting actually because what I did in uni, some of it was actually about so we did quite a lot of mask work,
Mm.
and some of like if we put on a particular mask, something like my lecturer was like, if you put on this mask, you'll feel different, and you feel this like you feel you feel different. You don't quite feel yourself, and I was like, okay, and I didn't quite understand, and he got me to wear this mask, and it was quite like the plain mask, and it was like goes over your face, and it was good, and then like, you put it on, and you did you did kind of feel different. And I think that's like that the interesting thing is that you really are just wearing a mask. Whether it's like visible or not, you're wearing a mask.
Yeah,
And I think it's you have to be really vulnerable. So so credit to the people that did lose themselves because like as well as being empathetic, you have to be really vulnerable. If you're not vulnerable and you're not letting your guard down, then you're not gonna understand, you're not gonna empathize. And I think it takes a lot of courage. And even like if you forget about the whole public speaking part, like you have to be vulnerable. And some of the things you do with the people like on stage, you have to be vulnerable as well.
mm,
Like I've been quite a few scenarios on like theater and film where you're like, Hannah's no longer like is a bit like ah. So your character probably feeling that as well. Um, you constantly are kind of working on yourself and working with the character and with the other people.
that thing you said about vulnerability
Mm,
and what basically just the mask that we have always on,
mm,
which I found super interesting. Um, and obviously, there's more things to go into it than vulnerability, but I
mm,
feel like vulnerability is one of the bigger things here. Um, so obviously, like you said, on stage, you have to be more vulnerable than you would be in your normal day-to-day life with other people, potentially even. So, do you think that maybe on stage you're even more yourself than off stage in just day-to-day life? If you know what I'm getting at?
I can't answer that question. I can only thing is all this I've been answering from my perspective, and I feel like every actor is very different, and every
Right.
performer is very different. I feel like I'm definitely much more myself on stage than off stage. I feel like off stage I'm really awkward.
Well, I can tell you you're not, but
Thanks. But like, yeah, I feel like I really struggle off stage. Whereas as soon as I'm on stage, I have no trouble at all. And I'm like, you can put me in the most weird scenario, like you put me in a fighting scenario or you put me in an intimate scenario and I'm just like, I'll dive head first. Whereas like off stage I'm like,
mm,
oh no, I'm a bit nervous. Yeah. I think it's because you're there for a reason. You've chose to be there, you wanna be there,
mm,
like you're living it and you feel so good afterwards. I think that's the best thing. It's like putting yourself out there. And yeah, I feel more myself when I'm on stage. Even when you're portraying somebody else, I feel like I'm being more myself. Because I've met like all the quite a few of the actors that I've met, we're all actually we're all insecure. Like I feel like everyone has their insecurities, but like I've got some really close friends who are really talented. They're also really insecure. And like I can say that I'm also really insecure as well. And it's crazy because my friend Rue, you see him on stage, he's so confident. And he's like he's got this amazing voice and you can hear him from all over
Mm,
like the stadiums and the like theaters and he's so confident and he like the last show I saw him in, he was just in a dressing gown. Literally, he spent this the entire time. Like, he grew his hair out, he was in a dressing gown, and I was like, "Wow." Whereas off stage, he's like, "Hi." He's like he's quite like he's a punk. So
right.
he's there and he's like there and he's got like his belts and he's like, "Oh."
Mm,
And he's just like, but then on stage, he's there in his dressing gown. He's like, yeah, like, but it's so I think we are more authentic, like, we are more ourselves because we have the excuse of hiding behind somebody else, but actually, and we are being somebody else, but actually that means that we have
mm,
the less fear. Like, fear again, I think you can be like, "Oh, I'm performing," so all those initial worries or embarrassments that you kinda just have to rip them off because performing is part of your job. Like that's what you're paid to do. Is like you can't be shy when you're on stage because then they'll be like, all right, well, we'll get rid of you and get somebody else.
yeah,
That's the one of the hardest, the most beautiful but hardest thing about performing is you're very easily replaceable.
right.
You can't replace an artistic director or producer or a lighting designer. You can bloody well like get rid of the actor because there's so many of us. You've got like 200, 300 self tapes, and they'll pick like 7 people. Like,
Mm,
so it's like if one of them doesn't click or one of them doesn't do as well, you're like, all right, get the next one in. So, which is,
and just to
mhm.
understand that more, so, but is there not also 100 artistic directors lined up?
No, like, yes and no, but no, they're really hard because artistic directors are the ones that created the vision, are in charge of pretty much everything. They're the ones that have meetings with producers, who have meetings with their team, who have meetings with like the set. And so it's like if you replace the
Right,
artistic
because
director,
they
you
already,
replace the entire concept of the show. And so it's
right.
like it's their show
So
where
once they made the cut, they're basically irreplaceable.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's there, and usually the artistic director is the house. So it's
Mm,
like, for instance, like Sydney Opera House, they'll have like an in-house artistic director, and they're like, right, we want to put on a show of this opera, and then they'll get people in.
right.
So it's like they're the ones in charge.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got like I said, tons and tons of people performing for tree number 4.
Mm.
Like it's very competitive, very competitive.
Um, so you talked a lot about what it is you love about it, and I feel like we've got a great picture of that. I'm just again curious because you have said you also have some film
Hmm.
experience. So you already mentioned that it's basically both is acting in a way, but it is also totally different. Um, so I'm not asking you which one you like more because that would be unfair. But what are maybe the one or two things that you like about theater a
Mm.
lot, and then what is the main thing or main two things you like about film the most?
Well, I can definitely tell you now I struggle more with film.
Hmm.
I struggle more with film. just because film is edited, crafted, uh, choreographed more. It's very specific. Whereas I feel like with theatre, you can be more free. So I think the great thing I love about film is they have a particular shot they want, and they won't leave it until they have it.
Hmm.
So it's like, right, we want, and I was really proud of myself because one of the ones that I wanted to do was such an easy shot, but we were in a cave and we had like tar all over us, and then it was the last shot. And the director was like, right, I want you to look from here to here without moving your head, but just move your eyes, and I'm going to follow you with the camera, and I want you to do it in one shot. It's like,
Right.
great, thanks, pressure. But like, and thing is, it sounds so simple, just move your eyes from here to here, it's fine. But then when you're like, oh, you're like, no,
Mm,
but then I did it in one shot, and I was super proud of myself. But that's how specific it is. They had a
right.
camera that panned you, and you had to be like, "This is your marker. This is your marker. Move your eyes from here to there." And if I didn't stop at the right space, or if I did too early or too late, they would have been like, "Cut, do it again." So I love how intentional film is. I think that's what I like. But I love how free theatre can be. And I think I don't want to tell you which one I prefer.
No, absolutely. No,
For the same time, like I do have a preference, but it's like,
I think everyone could have picked up on it.
and, but I know I'm sorry about that. But then the thing is, that's because I know my strengths and weaknesses, and I think everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, they're beautiful but very different. And I think great thing about film is everyone together is really in it. That's what I love. And the same with theatre. You can really see on a set that everyone wants this shot to go well. Everyone knows what it's going to be like. Everyone knows what needs to happen to take place to get this shot, which is amazing. And the energy can be so good. And with theatres, it's actually the same. But I think it's like you, as the actor as well, can play around a bit more.
Mm,
And I think that's a massive element about performing in general is the idea of play. And
right.
we were talking at the beginning of this about um, being a kid and being an adult. And I think a lot about being a performer is being a kid. It
Mm,
is. We run around the stage. We do yoga. We like do silly games. We do word games. We do ball games.
mm,
And I think it's going back and actually reintroducing the idea of play. Because if you're not having fun, then the audience can see that,
right.
and that's like is it play is such a big thing. And I think what was his name, the guy that plays Moriarty in Sherlock, Andrew Scott.
Never seen that.
Have you not? It's really good. It's really good. It's really good. But there's this actor, I think his name's Andrew Scott, and he was like, it's all about play. If you're yeah, and I did it in uni as well. If you have fun and play, and you play silly games with yourself and the other actors, then it makes things more interesting and it makes the audience more interested. So yeah, there are good things and bad things with theatre and film. It's different for everyone.
So what I'm kind of interested now is because when we started talking, and yeah, I didn't know that you did performing arts. I
Hmm.
was actually very surprised by that fact, because what you do now here, and I just suppose you don't really have that creative part in your job at the moment.
Mm.
So basically, what I'm wondering is that maybe a good change as well, to not have that element? Are you missing that element already? How are you dealing with not having that Oh, as you just said so beautifully yourself, that play, that outlets, you
Mm,
know?
I I really miss it, but I think I found a different outlet. Like I've been drawing a lot
Mm.
more, and I think my mom, my sisters, and I we're very creative. So I've drawn little figures and I've hid them around the lodge.
Oh!
And I did it the night before I left, so I'm gonna go back on Wednesday and be like, "Did anyone see my figures?"
Mm.
And I think again, play. So I've like drawn, and I even got one of my other lodgies to be like, "You hide some, I hide some,
Oh,
and then I don't know where yours are." And so
are you gonna look for the ones
I'm
that they
gonna
hit?
yeah, like I drew them, and I'm like, right. So I know I've given you these ones. Where are they?
Right.
So which I love, and I really miss it. But I think I'm finding different ways of being playful and artistic and like and it's a good challenge. But no, I miss it. I yeah. As soon as I'm gonna travel for a bit, but I really wanna go back to drama school. Um so originally I was gonna do drama school when I turned 18, but then I went to uni and I'm kinda glad I went to uni instead because quite a lot of drama schools and stuff, you pay just to audition.
Mm.
And and quite a lot. And I was actually 17 at the time, and I did my first drama school audition. And I was with this girl, and she'd been there 2 years in a row just to audition. She was like, "I've been working as a waitress. I really, really need to to get in." And they offered her the foundation course. I know, I was like, "Come on! This girl's auditioned like 3 times now," and you're like, "Oh, we pity her. We'll give her the foundation course." And it's so brutal. It's so brutal. And I think, yeah. Whereas now that I'm a bit older and I've done uni and I had more life experience, I'm like, actually, yeah, I do want to go back into like going to drama school because before I left, I did the Minac. That was quite fun. It was like a theater on the side of a cliff, and like this
Oh,
the hang on, the seats were on the side of the cliff, which is really cool. Um, but you don't have any mics, so you really have to shout up the cliff.
oh, so you're basically working with the natural acoustics of the place.
Yeah, and sometimes if the tide's rough, it can be quite like you have to really shout because
Mm.
that's
Oh, wow.
so
It
like
looks beautiful.
if you stand like you stand there, there's like a drop. There's like a rope and then a drop.
Yeah.
So if you're not careful, like you're just gonna go straight over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's I really like it was really fun, but I did worry a couple of times of falling over. Just going into the sea and be like, I'm
Oops.
sorry. Um, but yeah, I think if even when you're not performing, I think you find different ways to be creative. And so, yeah. Ah, it'd be so cool if you did it. That'd be so cool. I'll get to see you in the show. Is there any like theaters or anything near here?
If it
Like theaters or like performing places near here?
yeah, here,
Mm.
that's a great question.
Because I heard there, yeah, I don't know. We need to find it.
I know that in Christchurch, where I spent a lot of time,
Mm.
they had theaters. They had 2 or 3.
Ooh,
But I don't know for Queenstown.
that's fine. I'll wait till Christchurch. I'll wait.
Yeah, they definitely have this there. So, but yeah, you sort of kind of answered the follow-up question I had.
Mm.
So, you definitely see because you talked about how fun it was, but you also talked about how it just really helped you in more things than only theater and
Mm.
performing arts, but it helped you in life.
Mm.
So yeah, you still see your future in like actively participating in it though, rather than just oh, it was a part of my life, it helped me, but you want to go back to
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I really want to. I really want to. I think I I took time out to travel and I want to go back into it after I'm like ready because a few friends of mine who I was at uni with, they've created a small theater company and they're touring at the moment. So it's really nice, like
Hmm.
seeing them and seeing their like journey and seeing where they're going. Um, and it gives me motivation for me to like, yeah, like this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And I think, yeah, even if I don't go back into it, I think I would struggle. I would, I think I would struggle. I really would struggle. But I genuinely do think it has changed my life. I think it's something that's always been permanent. I started it so young. I feel like it's
Yeah.
weird when I'm not doing it. And I think, yeah, and it really helped me. I really struggled. Like, I struggle now, but I really struggled when I was a kid with, like, being, I'm really self critical and, like, I'm overly empathetic and I'm, like, very emotional. And I think, like, but I can say that now and be like, that's something that I work on and I really like. But as a kid, I really struggled with that. And performing really helped me with that because it gave me an outlet and it gave me something to focus on and it gave me something to connect with. And I see through the other characters like, oh, they went through these things or yeah, it really helped me understand myself and like the journey of things. And yeah, it makes me see people in a different way. I always try and see the good in people until they prove me wrong. And sometimes I'm like, oh, you proved me wrong really bad.
Sadly, sometimes they do prove you wrong.
Yeah. But that's all part of it. Like after after I after being with Corey for 3 years, I was with this person called Jay, and he used to be the head. He used to be a really big um this one he used to be a really big drug dealer, and he was like getting over with like a really bad addiction,
Right.
and I met him after like he'd stopped, and then it was and I was with him for quite a while actually, and we broke up in July, and I got the job like
But this year, July.
this year July.
Hmm.
And so that was like again a completely different experience, and it was quite hard actually because he was going through inner turmoil. So like helping him and understanding him, and then like learning from his experiences, and it was again beautiful. I wouldn't have changed any of this for the world, and I think it really toughened me up, but it really made me understand like I really needed like more boundaries, and I learned a lot about myself then. Because I think that's the scary thing. Like for me personally, is like I've had to be in quite extreme circumstances for me to be like, actually, I need to like take a step back for more boundaries and like, yeah. So it's I wouldn't change it for the world, but it was just very lots of very different experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um, and to bring it back to, or we didn't really get into it, but it's a perfect place to put my belief in there. I just want to say everything I believe happens for a reason.
for
So,
sure.
so I feel like the journey you're on, and like we
Mm,
said as well, the journey is still going on
mm.
and will never end. Um, so that's something you also live your life by. Basically, it's something you believe in, that everything does indeed happen for a reason.
Yeah. For sure, and I think that's the great thing. Like, everything happens for a reason, everything gets you to like, learn something, and I think there's always something to learn from. There's always something to, like, evolve and adapt, and yeah, I think everything happens for a reason. I mean, like, we here, aren't we? I know, it's like, yeah, I 100% agree. I think things happen for a reason, and things are put in your way or things are put in your path for you to learn a lesson. And then once you've learned that lesson, you have to keep what you've learned with you, and then you get another lesson. You know, and I think that's the beautiful thing about life. You're constantly learning. And I think even when we're like, oh, we would like to stop learning. Like, we like to have a pause, just pause for a moment. No, and I think that's beautiful because even though it can be really hard and no one's happy all the time, and there's going to be really hard times, there's also going to be really good times. And I feel like even though we can go through really like intense stuff, but actually you got a lot of that, got a lot from that, and you've learned about yourself through that. So I think, good or bad, I think you're constantly learning about yourself, and I think that's amazing. And we're growing. That's the thing. We're always growing. And then we could be like the really old people that like really like we can retire and we can sit and be like, actually, we learned a lot and we had an amazing life. So
That's I don't even want to add anything to that. That's a great way of summing it up. And yeah, basically, I feel like the way or the day rather, we stop learning is basically the day we die. We stop living if we don't evolve and learn.
it's a very precious thing. And I think there's so much knowledge to be had. There's always more to learn.
There always is. Um, I feel like that's a great way to
To
end
end it.
our conversation as
Yeah.
well. I've taken a lot of time from you already. Um, so one thing I always ask people if I find out they do something creatively is if you actually have any online presence where
Mm.
people could check some of your stuff out if they were interested in. So yeah, I don't know if you have a space where people can find.
For
Yeah.
sure. I think because I'm taking time off at the moment, I think maybe it's
Right.
like not right now. But when I'm back on and I'm back doing stuff, then I'll like be like, hey. But I think right now I'm not really. I'm keeping my presence quite low. I'm taking my time to travel and learn.
That's fair. So, that episode will be out there forever anyway. So, if you do decide to go back into it, we're definitely in
Thank,
touch. So you can just hit me a message, be like, "Here, now you can link my profile, and then we can put it up on the description there."
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So yeah, thank you again so much. It was a lovely conversation. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm not going to tell the people how late it is already. So yeah, I hope you have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, bye everyone.